one. I'll get you to invite up on the stage.
I'd like to invite Michael Bozza on stage, who's our Perth producer.
All right, so we're here to talk about Echo 8, which is not some sort of new song mixing competition. All right, this is a wonderful independent film. Maria, now, it's a really interesting story about this because you're not a filmmaker.
Yes.
Well, you are now, but you weren't when you started this, right?
I was more like a hobbyist filmmaker, and when I was making this film, I thought it was going to be just one of those home movies, you make it with your friends, but then little did you know, it then got picked up by the streaming platforms, and then it got funded to make the second and third, and SBS has picked it up. It just shows that, you know, you can actually be not a full-time filmmaker and still make something amazing.
So, okay, all of you, start working out what you're doing with your iPhones. Where did it first start? Where did it come from for you?
For me, I would say I came from the background of community work. I was actually like a community, sort of like a facilitator. I work a lot with different outreach communities, creating programming. So I wasn't doing cool things, but on the weekend, I would get together with my mates and we'll be like, yeah, let's do an action film. So we'll go out to the local park and then we'll get out like weapons or, you know, stuff like that and just make fight choreography in scenes. And that's how we started. And I just kept on doing that. And eventually I ended up working my way as an actor onto different shows like My Place, Fat Pizza, and recently Last King of the Cross on Paramount Plus. But I always kept my independent filmmaking spirit, yeah.
So I'm hoping the inspiration for a secret cohort organisation didn't come from community work groups.
No.
Like, you know, what's going on out there? Let's worry about this. How did you get Michael involved in this?
Michael, we met 10 years ago. And there's a couple of people in the audience that we've known 10 years ago as well. So like Ralph right here. But yeah.
Yeah, you were interviewing me for Jack Chan shoot thing. Where I'd offer 50 cars if he comes to Perth and does a stunt show. You know what I mean? Like, get it out there to him. But I'd love for him to come down. But, you know.
Mick here isn't a filmmaker. You're like a full-time car smasher.
Yeah. We crush cars, buy cars, but also my side hobby is, you know, car stunt coordinator for films or, you know, supply cars and do whatever stunts required. So it's good.
So let's have a little look at the trailer to start with. The trailer, can you run the trailer? Oh, yes? No? Sorry, I'm busy being naughty. This is what happens when you give me a microphone, I send everybody and say, this is the trailer, have a look everybody.
Yeah.
And I think there's another one as well. Yeah, that's called. That's a sequel.
Oh, is it?
And there's also a prequel that we shot at the same time.
Oh, aren't you an overachiever?
Well, you know what? It's so hard to make films, right? It's so expensive that I'm like, let's just do two at the same time.
Well, that was of course the idea when it first started with Back to the Future. They filmed the first one, it was successful. We're going to have all these, we'll just do them back to back.
Yeah.
Because you had them all there.
Yeah.
And it's actually getting to be commonplace now, if you look at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And especially if you're in a low budget, or even, I would say it's nano budget, because our first movie, we made it for $10,000. And that got picked up by Amazon Prime and Tubi and Apple TV. So it's super nano budget. Like,
you think of that, you realise that probably isn't even the catering for a morning on a Hollywood show.
Yeah.
Talk about it. Now, the cast is predominantly Asian. Is that for a specific reason of the story? Or?
I think for the first one, yes. And then after that, a lot of people would reach out to me and say, hey, I want to be a part of it, And how I would make films is that if I can see there's a demand or if there's more people wanting to do something, then we go towards that. Most of the cast on these productions are non-filmmakers. So they will come on board, I'll look at them though, they go, I've never acted before, can I be a part of it? And they'll come and we set up workshops for them to get the skills in acting and filmmaking or whatever to then fit the role.
So you're doing what our colleges are. Right, okay.
I want to make the film.
Political statement there, seeing out of trouble. All right. Now, don't forget, this was when you guys asking questions. So if there's anything you want to know, obviously for Maria, wonderful questions talking about her part. So if you have questions you want to know on how this process goes, make sure you put your hands up, all right? We were talking just before about the fact exactly that. There is no, shall we say, nursery for talent anymore in Australia. It's independent filmmakers who are giving people the chance to discover their talent.
Yes.
What do you think should be done about it?
Well, this is hard because a lot of the stuff, the decision making, is done by people in positions that sometimes don't know what is actually needed and practical down below, right? So for me, I come from the grassroots, and a lot of the times I would say I'm a hobbyist filmmaker until finally I break out. I always follow the similar models to Robert Rodriguez, who made films for very cheap, $7,000, and then he busted his way into Hollywood to then create change. So really we need to have more makers from different ages, different backgrounds in actually creating these feature films and finding a way to putting it onto streamers and creating the results outside of the system to then make the change. Because it's just doesn't help when we just go, we need change. It doesn't happen. It's once you do something, people go, what? Did you make that for that much? What 14-day shoot? How come it looks expensive? What, you only had such a little budget? How did you do it? Then we can start having conversations with agencies and politics and advocacy and so forth.
Because one of the things, certainly today, as we stand today, the technology is there to virtually take away the budget that used to be the physical parts of filmmaking, but hiring the cameras. I mean, you want to do a tracking shot, you used to have to do it on an automatic dolly, which was an expensive machine. If you want to do a tracking shot now, you go down the road and you buy a $250 drone and you shoot using that or something like that. So the technology, the hardware of making films has never been easier to get together and cheaper. And so there's things like software. So what were you filming your shows on? What did you film?
Well, the first movie, because there's 3 movies in the trilogy, 3 feature length, okay? So all 3 of them, we filmed it on a Blackmagic 4K. There was a point where I had a 6K, but it was too heavy to do the action. And a lot of the times I'm also a camera operator. So there's times when I'm in front of the camera, I'll have my team. But if I'm not in front of the camera, I'm behind the camera operating because I'm also an editor. So the film that you see, myself and my team, we co-share a lot of the roles only so that we then push for the best of what we've got. And I do believe that as a filmmaker, you need to learn all the roles. I mean, people go, you need to specialize. That's great if you have the luxury and the money to do that. But if not, really learn the basics of camera operating, editing, putting it together. And now I'm learning about distribution. And through the process of making this film, we have a crowdfunding campaign where Mick came on board as a producer. And I'm also trying to help him one day get the skills and knowledge to make films in Perth as well.
I think there's a market for an endless movie that's just car crashes.
Well, people want action.
Hold on, that was the Blues Brothers.
Yes, well, we can do it one in Perth, Blues Brothers.
Action. So.
Yeah, and it's true, we do, because I was in the American film market. I was working for a company, and last year, 2025, the top 2 genres is horror and action. And apparently there's a big projection that within the next, I think 2 to 5 years, there's not going to be enough projects to actually satisfy that need. Because a lot of times action is, you need a much more higher price tag to make that genre. But But if you can find ways to do smaller scale, you can find pathways to get it distributed and make money back as well.
Well, if you have a look, a lot of Australian independent films are all horror.
Yeah.
You know, because, we'll find a creepy abandoned building and we'll shoot, we'll do this. And you can do it on a minuscule budget, but still come up with some really good work. So, your character, who do you play in the trilogy?
Okay, so the character I play in the trilogy, her name's Echo 8. It's a code name, but her actual real name is Anna, and she's just a character that doesn't know who she is. She's lost her identity, and then she gets this one job that she has to eliminate this other woman, which I'll do a spoiler because you can actually find the movie online now. She ends up realizing she's been given a target that is very close to her home, that is one of her family members. And now she has to find ways to choose either she goes through with the project or she fights the system. So, you know, it's kind of like psychological thriller, bit of a backdrop for action, but working within a genre that I would say has a demand internationally.
Can we have the second trailer, please? Maybe we have the second. I'll use my manners now. Maybe we have the second trailer, please. Thank you. This trailer we will be doing the soft puppets. Just to be clear. Yep, okay. Five by five.
This one's the prequel.
Music. One of the hardest things I find for people when they're looking at doing their movies is finding music. Where did you get yours from?
We source it on different platforms. There's even like free resources that you can get free music, but what's interesting is that we have people within the collective that would have an ear and be able to put it together. Like for me, I'm very visual, so I would probably have to delegate it to other people like Takashi and Adrian Castro, who would then have this kind of different way of looking at cutting trailers and so forth. But the two little bits of videos you saw there, they're actually a first look teaser. They're not actually the official trailer. We actually shot the film in January to March this year, only 50-day shoot, and then we just released a first look trailer only because we wanted to raise more financing to then finish the film. So there's a way in terms of making films that you can actually finance your films through crowdfunding, which I so recommend everyone looking into. Because a lot of times we think we have to foot the bill, we have to get our own personal money to make movies, but there's actually, if you know how to market your film for international audiences, they will come, because especially if it's a heightened genre that they would like to watch. Yeah.
Where did you film?
I filmed it in Sydney, but within the crowdfunding campaign, we had perks, we call it perks, where people would buy aspects of it to also be in the film. So there's a lot of people from the US who are in the film in different roles, and we'll have to film it and outsource the filming and then put it into the film itself at the end.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very cheeky.
Very?
Yeah. I like that. Now, do we have questions from people? You actually have a hand up. Hello, you have a question? How many locations did you use?
Okay, so for both of the films, we used about, I think, 20 locations, but most of the time was locals. So I would go to the local, business owners. I'd be like, hey, I'm making a film. It's going to go onto a streamer. Do you want to advertise? And I'm telling you the amount of different businesses that will jump towards that, because it's not every day people make films. So you have to look into your local market and go, how does my film help kind of drive people to different businesses and services and make people contribute? So we filmed in a lot of places just so that we know that once the film goes out, they see their locations and their businesses and services as well. Yeah.
Actually, it's an interesting way of doing things. Many years ago, the Ted Network, when they were in big trouble, financially very bad, they actually had a campaign where their sales team went out and said to people, like, hey, you're advertising. People go, you're network 10, you're the bottom. No, yeah. But do you know how many people you'll reach just working at the bottom? And it was an interesting, this concept that if I can't afford that, I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah.
But hold on, for this, you're going to get exposed to this.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, an interesting thing. So go to a movie, you're not be there. It's going to be your shop that's featured.
Yeah.
So people say, oh, where's that? Like those sort of things. So I think people instantly assume when raising capital, you have got to be offering something extraordinary to people to want to invest. Whereas human nature is, if I can get something out of this, it's better than I've got. You can find a way to make it work.
Yeah. And I think as a filmmaker or a creative, sometimes we have to look at our projects as, how do we add value? So it's not necessarily, oh, I'm making a film, this is going to be a great film. No, it's about, how do I make a film that tells a story about potentially a local community, and then how does it get out there? Because storytelling is one of the most oldest way of building legacies, because a lot of things come and go. Time's never going to go backwards. We're going to keep on aging, right? So therefore we have to go, how do we find time capsules to keep our stories and then pass them on to the next generation? And that's why it's important that when we make a film, we include as many people, and we tell them that film isn't just for entertainment only. There is a sense of retaining history and storytelling to pass on to the next generation.
Well, it's interesting if you look at movies, things like that. We were just talking about Titanic, and somebody raised the issue that was the Billy Zane character a product of his time, the same as Rose was. And if done properly, you do get to look at why people maybe were like they were at certain times, which you don't get to see sometimes from written history or something like that. It's just not there because we are now a visual world. So, and of course, you're talking about other things. I mean, let's face it, was it 10 years ago, 15 years ago? One of the largest divisions in every Hollywood studio was product placement.
Yes.
They just went out to cut deals. They're going to be drinking a soft drink. It'll be a Pepsi or it might be a Coke probably. They were making millions putting that stuff in.
Oh yeah.
So.
And then that's why I think about it. Why don't we figure out how to do that on a smaller scale, right? So when filmmakers and creatives make things, why don't we think of creating our own smaller economy and making that a success? So for example, if you want to make films, look into making short films and then creating spaces where businesses can also put money into it or product placement, and then you get that film out there, you get it screened, and you rinse and repeat it again and again to then finally build towards making feature films and so forth. Yeah.
Did you use things like YouTube as a streaming platform for your original products? Try and get your own, like my own movie channel running on?
Well, how it works is once it got onto Amazon Prime and Tubi, they are probably the platforms that is making us the most money back for our film. So you can imagine we made a film for $10,000 and then after 1.5 years we've made our budget back. And not only that, it's been streamed for up to 1 million people worldwide. So already it's given that marketing exposure, and then with that data, we're able to set up a campaign, and then again, more people are putting in because they know the value of the exposure. So yes, I would probably say it's great to get that exposure, but you also need to be strategic when you're a creative as well. A lot of times we're creative, we want to get our stories out there, but we don't know how to. but there are steps that we can trial and test. And I would say having a level of business entrepreneurial way. Like when I talk to Mick would tell me about, he's also in the film for the sequel as well, because I was like, we got to feature your monster truck stuff, you know, because I do believe that you bring people in not only as financing, but find ways for them to be in front of the camera, to experience what that's like, to create that sustainability in terms of movie making.
Doing a hitchcock, you know, you have to be in all of these movies.
Yeah.
You know, it comes through those little moments. Mick, for yourself, cars?
Yeah, well, I basically do a bit of car stunt coordinating. Over the years, I've seen a lot of films not being able to take off because of the regulations involved, because of the stunts, it's dangerous. And a lot of films I've been a part of, I've offered my time and the vehicles, and I've set up the scene so the film can still happen. Because I did a lot of stuff for universities and students so they can learn. But I've got locations like my yard where I crush cars, where it's easier. So certain films that I do for people, it can happen because I volunteer a lot of my time, because I want it to grow. And in Australia, and one thing I do love about Maria's crew and what she does is that we all hold hands because we can get it done by effort. It's not just about money, because with me, I get people that give me their property where it's got a beautiful view or beautiful location, and they're more than happy to say, hey, do your crash scene here, because they get to see that their place is going to be on camera. So with Maria and her crew, I love their efforts, and we all get amongst it and have some fun. But I'm trying to encourage films in Perth and put a lot of action into it. You know, because people want to see adrenaline. So yeah, so that's what I do. I crush cars and buy cars, and we do all that, scrap metal and all that. And the cars that I put aside for films was years ago. I used to do a lot of stunts out in the bush and with my mates, and then we would get it on camera.
Sounds fair, sounds fair. What's the next project, Marie?
Well, this is quite interesting. We just, as I said, we're in post-production for the second and third film. And then now we're looking in terms of going, okay, we've done a crowdfunding campaign, which you can find online on Indiegogo. And we're thinking of maybe doing a fourth one in 2028.
Oh.
And the thing is, I have to plan ahead, because one of these things is if I don't plan, I lose momentum. It's when you make films or you make something that has energy, you gotta act. You gotta keep it rolling. Otherwise, once it takes a dip, it's harder to bring that energy to get people back on. When you're winning, you gotta keep on working on that streak as well. Yeah. So 2028, we're doing the fourth one. So at the moment, well, like I do a lot of consultation. I talk to a lot of businesses, people, and I ask them what stories they want to see, and then we create characters from that actually reflects back to the audience. So our first one was very Asian-centric, and our second and third one reflects more of Australia, different looks, different faces, people who are battlers, but there's also this world of, you know, assassins and espionage and AI surveillance that we're kind of wedged in as well, and a ticking bomb that's going to blow up buildings as well if we don't, you know, find ways to stop it. You know, it's a bit of Die Hard.
We have a question.
Yeah, Maria, congratulations. It's not the first one on YouTube.
Yeah.
Should I apologise for that?
No. Do it.
The prequel in Sydney, is the sequel set changed location Sydney?
It's still in Sydney, and then I think the fourth one we're looking at maybe changing it up. So it's still both in Sydney, but the Perth element is that we're sort of reaching out to Mick, who's also filming bits that going to put into the film as well.
Do stuff in Perth.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fourth one's going to be out of Parramatta.
No, it might. The fourth one might not even be in Australia. We're not sure.
Blue Mountain,
No. We want to travel, definitely.
Another credit for the first one is Sarah Moran with my church's Sydney Public Shot.
Oh, yep.
You get the chance to do that, and the other ones if no money's coming in.
Oh, see, this is the thing.
Wow.
I would say that the more money means more issues to deal with, and I really want to keep that essence of indie, and I don't want it to be like, no, you need to do all these things for the because there's a an audience that's paying for it and they want certain things. So it's very important as an artist, as a filmmaker, that you keep the integrity of the project. So I wouldn't go off and sell myself up and go, hey, yeah, you know.
So, do you have the second and third ones before the first one?
No, that the second and third one was basically once we made the first one, and then I remember watching it because I'm very critical. The first one, when I made it, I'm still not happy. I'll be watching it and I'm like, oh, why did I do this? Why do I do that, right? So after it went to the film festivals, and in America, they loved it. I was like, really? They love this film? Then I said, we need to look at the second and third one because this is the momentum. And then most of the financing that we got for the next two films were coming from the US, who wanted to see these Australian films in sort of these communities in heightened genres. So we just kept at that. Yeah, so we only finished filming in March this year, but already we've got an assembled cut. And by December this year, I'll have a little screening just to test it out. By next year, we're trying to hit theatrical.
Final one, so the first movie is the big Australians.
Yeah. You'll find out more. You had a point. Well, that's the thing. Once we made it, we're like, what if we keep it on a cliffhanger, right? Because you never want to make something people are like, oh, that's it, done. We wanted people to go, hey, what happens next? We went back, we had those bits in, and what's funny is that that's what a lot of people ask us, what happened? What's the story? So it gave us more opportunities for more storylines and world building, and it was a clever move for the writer to incorporate that as well. Yeah.
We have a question.
Sure, yeah, I've got a couple of kids going into the film industry for their university days now. You mentioned hardware costs coming down, software costs as well. What do you recommend, in terms of something that's not going to cost thousands of dollars for licenses? What should they be learning? What should they get up to speed on? AI, what are we doing here now? What should they get up to speed on so that they're well placed over the next couple of years when they're entering the industry?
Okay, the basic story. They need to mine stories, and they need to be interested in all types of people, connect with as many people as possible, because that's where when you connect with people, even when I connect with Mick, I don't know much about his car world, but even when he tells me stuff and I'm like, wow, that's what it's like in Perth and having all these monster trucks, cars and crushing it and how hard it is. I love it. I'm fascinated about that because it helps me create characters. And when they get into the film and make films, they need to have a lot of energy to start something and finish it. Because a lot of times people get into the creative arts, they make something, but it gets too hard and then they leave. So they need to create a core group of maybe 2 or 3, could be their best buddy, that really they're like, you know what, doesn't matter if the times are tough, we gotta keep going. Because at the end of it, it is worth it. In the middle of it, when you're making it, everything is falling apart, everyone doesn't believe you, doesn't matter once you reach the end. So they need to build the resilience, and that they might not be taught that. To be honest, they get taught that in who they meet. Sometimes their family members, as a father, you teach them, you can tell them stories to build that sort of side of them and help support them along the way. You might even be in their films. You participate with them in their filmmaking to help them build the confidence. Yeah.
Okay, so software?
I think
you do not buy.
he knows, yeah.
Yeah, you go to a website, they aren't actually usually here, I don't know if they're here, a website called blackmagic.com.au.
Yeah.
You download DaVinci Resolve. You will find it is one of the most powerful products you can use. It's free. There is a paid version of it. There are also endless hours of tutorials on how to use it online. You can basically use, Maria was saying she uses the DaVinci, the Blackmagic 4K. For starting out, you can use any decent DSLR camera. All right, any DSLR camera.
I would say even basic, your phone.
Your phone, iPhones are all 4K now.
But not for the movie making, just to develop the eye.
Here
Yeah.
you can see here, for argument's sake. So let's see on the end of the phone, a little bit here. The guys are wearing wireless microphones.
Yep, that's right.
These are really expensive these days.
Yeah.
You can go to, again, Rode, Australian company.
Yeah.
Rode is an Australian company. They've got the Rode Go range of wireless microphones. I have like 3 of them myself, I use for podcasting, and they're just easy. You can use those. And the biggest thing I can tell you, tell them to just hunt around second-hand stores. Go to cash
Yeah.
converters. Go to second-hand stores, things like that. You will find so much audio-visual gear in there. And if there's one investment that I would recommend making, make sure they get either a desktop, and I would suggest a desktop more than a laptop, even though people use it, that is built specifically with high enough power to run full editing software. Because that's the big clue. Sorry, it took over.
No, that's okay. No, that's very valid. But I would always say, regardless, your phone is still your best asset because you have access to it. Because as a filmmaker, a director, you need to work your hours in terms of looking at shots and composing shots. If you don't have the hours, doesn't matter the gear that you have, it won't get that. So when I would to be directing, I would be a little bit ADHD. I am slightly, and then I would look at a shot and I would just look for the perfection of the shot and how it really makes me feel, and then go with that. But the more you do that, the better you get. So therefore, because you can't, when you do indie films, you don't have the time. So when I made the second 2 films, 50 days, we're doing 14-hour plus, and it's crazy. Like it's a lot, and having to do multiple action sequences and having to coordinate that with the team, with the actors who most of them haven't done acting before, to get them across the line, to get them to look good and sell their character. You need to practice on looking at that, what's through the camera, and feeling if that's the shot you want. When you first start, you might not even know what you're looking for. But as you keep practicing, your eye, I call it the creative eye, like intuitively gets better and better and better. Now, if you don't want to do the filmmaking, I would suggest doing your own self-videos, your own personal fun little videos that you post. I notice Mick does a lot of that, but that practices you in your confidence. Yeah.
Puts you in the moment.
And
Yeah.
you start to find, as they use it, they'll start to learn, the lighting wasn't really good in that one.
Exactly.
Now I'm going to go and find out how to do lighting, all these sort of things. But both Maria and Mick are right. The only way they're going to do it is they have to do it. And right now the technology is there to be able to do it, pick up the phone and film. Even if it is just, I noticed the other day there's a person who's running, I think it's through Twitter, no, Instagram. They're running a full soap opera through Instagram. Them and their friends film episodes,
Yep.
which are all about 5 minutes long. And they're just running this full soap opera through Instagram. They're doing it, whether they're monetizing or not, I don't know.
Some of the even shorts, like they're even 1 minute long, so that's why it's important that I always think of it from a filmmaking from a little bit of a philosophical perspective, is that do you and your family have a story that you want to share? Can you work together as a team to create smaller stories first? I always say to get into feature filmmaking, look at documentaries, self-family documentaries first. Like for me, I spent time working within my parents who are aging and going back and asking them, interviewing them about them growing up. All that, it actually helped me become a better filmmaker later on.
So your parents are the 2 spies in the story, right? Now we know where it all came from.
Yeah.
Now we know. Any other questions from people? Feel free to ask. So you're saying hopefully December you'll have a small screening and then release it?
It's definitely December the 6th. I've already penciled it in. I can't go back on my word. Otherwise people will be like, ha, she lied. So, Yeah.
What are you doing? I mean, is it now all shooting full-time? Doing the filmmaking, or are you doing
100% not. I am juggling multiple things. So I have my film company in Sydney. but I'm also in the US, so I'm just learning all the business side of the legalities on how to set it up and how to build the networks to then operate that. I also work for a photography company because I realize if I don't make films, I start to lose the eye. Like I start to, when I look at the lens, it's not the same. So I know that every single week when I'm working 3 days a week, 12 hours, I'm working on my eye and I'm happy. I'm getting paid for it. It's not filmmaking, but it's photography and it still earns a living and it still is a part of what I'm doing. And then I do various projects. I just finished doing a video series working with young people of disabilities, in how they advocate for their own public spaces. And that makes me happy. It's not action, but it's also another way to tell stories and add value to your community.
More questions from anybody? No? Surely there are. Come on. Such an interesting subject, so many things to
Does anyone have any projects or anything, or any burning ideas they want to do?
I do actually, and I'll talk to you about that later. I don't want everybody to know. It's actually a documentary that I've been speaking to a couple of other people about. And you might be the right person to be able to pull it off. So we'll see. We'll talk. I'll get your people to speak to my people. We'll have lunch. All of that. Here we go.
One other question. You said you were in the U.S. for a while. You heard talking my accent. I came over here. I'm a bit of a refugee. I'm not wanting to go back because it's a little crazy there.
Yeah.
I don't want my kids to go back there at the moment either. So is there a future for them if they graduate here in Perth? Locally, do they need to go to Melbourne? Do they need to go to the U.S.? Do they need to go to L.A.? Or can they make it go here in Perth?
They can make do in Perth. I believe go to where there isn't, the market isn't saturated and build a community. Because then with time, they're going to stand out. But if you go to a saturated market, you're competing for resources to make that dream happen. So stay in Perth, build the community here.
The only reason people used to travel, and again this goes back to days, years ago, I was a casting director. The reason people used to travel is because all the projects were being made in Sydney and Melbourne in those days. That's why you had to go to Sydney and Melbourne. These days, you are making your own projects, so it doesn't matter where you are. And as Maria said, you build your project and you build the community around it so that you're the one who's doing it. So there's no need to go anywhere else. And with the current way like this, you will get noticed in the other services. It will happen.
Yeah, and also nowadays it's like you build the community, you work on the marketing, you have your team be proud of the project and keep sharing it. That's how you create traction. Because keep in mind, people aren't they're getting bored of seeing I would say they get bored of seeing beautiful, good-looking people on screen. They're always I find that people are starting to they're yearning to see stories that have not been told, people who look like your average Joes on screen playing heroic characters, I'm starting to see there's a trend, and I think that's something we should look at, rather than people who've got major six-pack on the screen and all that. It's just done to death.
I've got to watch sports, don't There's 60 times of laundry on it at the moment, what can I tell you? All right, we have our last question. Hello, what did you want to ask?
Do you have TV or film?
Do you have people with disabilities on your film?
Oh yeah.
There you go.
A lot of actually.
Good stuff. Christine's watch out.
You know what, working in the disability space, because I recently kind of got told that I have a little bit of ADHD because my attention span is all over the place. But I find that people in that space are highly creative and they're not held back from people saying that, oh, you can't do that. And when they band together and they get the right support, they make amazing things happen. So the films that you see that I make, a lot of them are run by crew and people in front of the camera who have a disability, but we work together to support that. And for them to be seen in action roles, it's so cool because outside they're completely different from what you see on screen. That's the character they create, and as a community, we help give them the confidence to create that. But outside, they're quite, normal, or they're quite diverse in abilities. And it's just amazing that we can make something look amazing and cool and have it on a streaming platform that is actually reflective of who we really are on the outside.
Well, believe it or not, we've run out of time. And that just flew past. Wow. Where are you guys around the floor? Is there a spot you're sitting that somebody can come and talk to you?
Oh, we'll probably be in the corner. We're sort of outside,
Please head over to Maria and talk to them about the projects. You can get through how they can, help your kids. We give them a big round of applause and all the success.
Thank you so much, guys.